So, we know that AI is reshaping the retail industry, but what does that really mean for customer experience? To help us answer this question, we've invited a very, very special guest speaker. Known as the Customer Whisperer, she is the UK's leading go-to business expert on consumer insight for national TV and media. She was awarded an MBE in 2018 and has been the recipient of 26 national and international commerce awards. She's also now an author with a book published this year called The Science of Shopping. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to the stage Kate Hardcastle, MBE.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And what an incredible venue to amplify. I've been asked here today to bring the voice of the consumer. I guess you could call it to the room where it happens. This is happening more and more, and I'm so grateful. I'm going to give you my insights that have been collected from the data points, but also my actual experience working with brands here in the UK and internationally, and talking to you as leaders across cultural moments such as South by Southwest and Cannes Lion. Thank you for helping me be in the room to talk about not chasing the latest fad. I certainly don't hide behind any technical jargon. It's absolutely my passion to work with consumers, to understand them, to listen to them, because it's so incredibly human to want to be listened to. And it's happening less and less in this world. And then I make sure those voices are heard at boardroom level, and I push back. I am meant to be the disruptor in the room. I want to start with something very simple today, and that is a reminder. Consumers don't care about acronyms or jargon. They don't care whether you're using AI, actually, in most cases, or machine learning, or agentic workflows. What they care about is what they see, interact with, and feel. This is storytelling, but it's emotional. And that's the word I've probably not heard today, and I want to bring to the stage today. I want to talk to you about amplification, absolutely, but I want to talk to you about amplification with authenticity. So I'm just going to explain a little, for those of you who don't know me, how I work. I invented a role for myself, simply put. I was asked when I was out there advising organizations globally. I was one of the first women to work out in Guangzhou. I was in fashion. I was leading a very nice in-house life. As there was a need and a requirement for more voices for the consumer, more women on television, more northern regional accents on the telly box, if I might step forward and become a voice of the consumer. And I do that freelance, believe it or not, what's amounted to now over 2,500 documentaries and TV pieces from NHK in Japan to right here, the BBC on Saturday morning, waking you up with your cornflakes if you saw it. I do that as well as speaking. As I say, talking at those cultural moments. I like to have this ambition of building bridges and not thrones. I think so much of our work is complementary and non-conflicting, and sometimes it's up for me to be able to go into boardrooms and say, look, I know this is a bit revolutionary, but why don't we work with this organization? Why don't we share here? I sit as a non-exec on a lot of boards and certainly do that with organizations that are really trying to test the boundaries and the barriers of where tech can go, because at heart, I was a young girl coding when that was not a trendy thing to do at all in a bedroom in Huddersfield. And I have worked shop floor to boardroom. So it's that mix of the broadcast work, the advocacy, and advising organizations that help and serve the consumer that brings this mix of insight together. We're in the need, in this age, for expertise in what's almost like an overburdening of information. We have consumers looking for personalized advice. Trust and credibility is absolutely paramount, and wanting an enhancement of customer experience. And that's the brilliant thing about being here today. Everyone in the room's got the desire to do it. No one wakes up in the morning and thinks, yeah, I'm going to be really bad at customer service today. I think it's for the consumer to have almost their expectations reined in. I worked across sectors from nursery, theme parks to celebration of life. So I'm watching the consumer in every element of their life. And on Saturday morning, I was commenting about a delivery partner where there's been an issue with supply chain and technology. And the figure they'd put out was that it's probably impacting about 8% of the parcel flow. And the point I make, which I make to you today, is absolutely. Could be 6%, 2%, 0.2%. What you've got to remember is if it's the consumer who's been impacted, 100% of their focus. And that's really my reminder, to go back in, to remind you as the organization what that means, why it's so emotional, why it impacts so hard. So, as we love to copy-paste, I took Maslow's hierarchy of needs, borrowed it, and made my own hierarchy of needs. This is the only science bit in my presentation, but it's the way I help organizations understand how much conflict is in the consumer's mind. Why is it, Kate, that we have a 16-year-old to 35-year-old female customer who talks about being sustainable, then in the same breath will buy a £4 bikini that she knows is not coming with any sustainable qualities whatsoever? This is a motive. This is how it works. This is the shifting situation in the consumer's mindset. So I want to take you back for a moment just to being consumers. Just remembering you'll wake up in the morning. Maybe like some of our consumers out there at the moment, you're on economy drive. Maybe you are budgeting a little bit, reining it a little bit in a little bit. And we hear and we see the phrase from the Estee Lauder legacy of the lipstick economy, but let's just really revisit how that feels for consumers today. There's a deluge of information, you're bombarded, your social media is full of people having a far better life than you, but you are going to work to stick to your budget. You are going to work to make sure that you get it right this time. You're not going to fail on that budgeting. You're going to make it happen. You diligently go downstairs and you batch cook. You're ready with your plastic boxes that used to resemble something like a Tupperware, and you're packing the lunch, you're taking the more economical route into work, you're at the desk, you're ready to go. All's going well. Through the day, you ignore the colleagues who are going off for a nice pick-me-up. Even though you're bombarded with the offers, you're sticking resolute to the plan. You are on economy drive. You're texting your partner at lunchtime. We're both doing well. This is fantastic. The money will be in the bank. The deposit's on the way. I can feel it. We can even maybe put that mini break in Paris into play now. This is happening. We're doing it. Lunchtime, afternoon, someone's heading for a pick-me-up coffee, but not you. No, you're sticking to ED. You know the plan, you are driven, you're feeling good, but no, the social media really swarms and overwhelms, and on the transport on the way home, you really think the impact. Then you find out maybe your partner, your friend, just going for a quick drink, just heading out. One drink, what can it matter? You head out for a nice glass of wine, a beverage, a beer, sitting there, waiting for the friend who's late as usual, something pops up. Out for the wine now. Might as well. Start tomorrow. Start economy drive again tomorrow. We're on this cycle. We're on this churn. We're on this evolution. Sometimes we're absolutely besotted in love with the brands that feed us with the content. Sometimes we're really freaking frustrated with them. And this is the emotional journey that I know you're aware of, but I guess it's my job to go back in and remind and be a sanity check on, because one of the things I'm being asked to be interviewed a lot on, talk about a lot at the moment, is digital distress. We have consumers across all age groups talking to it, talking about how overweighted they feel with the burden of digital distress. Everything's coming in via that route. Everything is coming to them with opportunities, but also chances and things they can't take. Things that make them feel frustrated, things that make them feel disincluded. And there's this element of narcissism in us. We want to be legends in our own lifetime. We don't want the era that our parents, perhaps our grandparents lived through that we see as being cookie cutter or maybe just vanilla. We want something more exciting for ourselves. We want to be something and someone that stands for values and ethics and an exciting life lived. And that is exactly where the hierarchy of needs comes into it. It could be as obvious as I've watched an environmental documentary and I'm impacted by that and my need for sustainable and ethical is rising up. Or it could be that I just feel left out. I feel frustrated. I feel like it should be me, shouldn't be me. And that's why I'm going to reach into that buy now, pay later and spend. But it's our job, our responsibility to guide and support. When I talk about digital distress, I don't think that's for someone else to pick up, because I truly feel in our generation as business leaders, we're taking on so much more responsibility, so much more culpability, and we have to help these consumers understand, to regroup, to be able to advise and support. Sometimes if that means we don't get the immediate sale, but sometimes we get the longer term commitment. So why does this matter now? Years ago, as we know, a campaign might have just meant a TV spot, some posters, handful of digital assets. But today, as we know, it's just hundreds and hundreds. The videos, the live stream shopping, the web banners, app notifications, email journeys, influencer collabs, in-store screens, all running at the same time. And these consumers, they're not waiting around. 71% of customers now expect brands to anticipate their needs before they even know them themselves. That's the new bar. So the pressure's huge, and teams are expected to produce, as we've heard, more content in more formats faster than ever, all whilst cutting those costs and meeting some sustainable targets too. And the math's just not mathing. Traditional workflows and contents, I see still siloed teams, still manual approvals, still duplicated builds. It's just not keeping pace, and something has to give. So I trust and believe in the opportunity of technology working hand in hand with human support and interaction. And I feel that this is not about a shiny new tool. It's a chance to rewrite the rule, but I just put a caveat in here. It's rewriting it with education, with authority, with support, and in partnership. And it's including those consumers in this journey, not making them feel it just has to be done for them. So when you strip everything back in my consumer lens, if you like, what do people want? They want to be heard. They want to be understood. 90%, up to 90% of purchase decisions are still emotional. No matter how much we can sway them in the moment, emotion still runs large. And that means that it can't just be about the words and pictures. It's got to be about creating feelings. Got to be about a feeling of relevance and resonance. Noise is getting more instantly rejected. We've all scrolled past those irrelevant ads within seconds. Consumers are getting little patience for clutter. They do expect seamless journeys. The message on the website should align with Instagram, the in-store experience, the chatbot, the customer service. Omnichannel, of course, is not the ambition anymore. It's the baseline. But I do feel that it's authenticity that underpins it all. The younger generations in particular, they've just got a sharp radar for the BS. They reward brands that show consistency and honesty. Loyalty isn't being built by being the loudest. It's built by being the most trusted. And I know we have data that shows that very transient, fickle element to it, but I have been working on some really exciting real-life things where we have created that stickability in that younger 16 to 24-year-old marketplace. I'd love to talk to you about some of the ways we've done that, but a lot of that comes down to that emotional relevance and making someone feeling they're understood, important, and a star in their own lifetime. So when I talk about that content supply chain, I feel that authenticity has to still stay in focus. It should be that you are testing yourselves regularly on it. Efficiency is incredibly useful. Relevance, authenticity, and trust are the ultimate measures for me. Tech should serve these needs, not the other way around. So expectations now seamless across channels. You know, if I see this jacket on Instagram, I want it on the website. I want it in my size, in my language, in my stock. I do want the models to look representative and feel like I can see myself on the screen. I do want the description or the information around it to feel as if it's the product I'm talking to and not just cut, copy, paste. I think this is where I feel brands are sometimes still struggling. I think the clincher is that loyalty will follow authenticity, and people are quick to walk away from brands that feel fake or fragmented. But when the content feels honest, when it's relevant, when it's joined up, when a handbag company comes to me and says, I'm not just going to tell you what the dimensions are, I'm going to show you what you can fit in here, I finally feel like someone gets me. And we know we've got this content crunch, the volume and variety outpacing the workflow, the legacy process stuck in silos, creative talent lost to admin tasks. We've heard of some of that this morning. But I just also want to reassure, I have the ultimate privilege of going into so many boardrooms, so many organizations. I'm not just looking from the consumer perspective. I'm seeing it in real life. I'm seeing it firsthand. And I can assure you, it's not just you. It is others. There is frustration. The speed is everything. And that's why we need our partners to help us. That's why we need to make sure that we are working with experts who can support a high ambition. So my top 3 in terms of recommendations, it's simply about keeping it simple. Automating the chores, using the plan, reason, act methodology, and thinking teammate, not tool. I've always seen tech as being that for me. I think consumers are more willing than ever to accept that's what we want to achieve. But I truly want to understand how we can be better as organizations to grabbing the consumer's hand, partnering with them, helping them feel more part of it. So, stepping out of all of your worlds and into one of my additional worlds at the moment, what's happening in the newsrooms right now? How are organizations using all of these techniques? This is huge. It's really an interesting world right now because news has to be relevant, but news has to be real, and the fact-checking will be done, whether it's by you or by your viewers. So we're seeing this AI drafting of the articles, then the cross-checking of the facts in the live databases, the adaptation for the tone in local markets, but it is still that human touch that's sanity checking, and will be tied when it doesn't, because that's the impact. When something that needs to be as trustworthy and recognized as the authority as the news is experimenting and trying to understand where the fit is, the consumer, the viewer wants to feel at all times that you have the respect for them to get it right when it comes to clarity and truth-telling. I see chaos in some organizations. I see organizations on the way to clarity. I think the very best examples are the collaboration, not competition, in terms of we're all on similar journeys. It's an opportunity to work together. I think traditionally, maybe eras before us, maybe it might have been your boardroom now, there are still leaders that are nervous of this. They don't want to look like they don't know what the answer might be. They would never dream of opening up the doors to other organizations. But I work in organizations like automotive, and I think that it's exciting when you can get in a room of people trying to answer the same problems together, combining the efforts. And I think it's about that alignment where we're seeing the most success. So when it comes to consumers and the trust, we can't forget the simplest test of all, which is how does it feel? Trust has become the most valuable currency, I believe, in business. Research has shown that 38% of consumers would stop engaging with a brand altogether if they discovered AI was being used without full disclosure. People are savvy. They can spot generic content. In most cases, it's getting more sophisticated. They can feel a message is being churned out without not really understanding who they are. That's when the engagement drops. That's when the reputational damage sets in. And I heard this from an incredible leader who was so honest in a boardroom last week in Paris, but said, Kate, I just don't know where the next banana skin is. So that's why I'm keeping it real, because I know there's going to be one there. We're just not quite sure where it's coming from. But the knowing, the knowledge I've got to have that human side to me, to lead my team, to lead my stakeholders, and lead the consumer through that communication crisis will be that honesty has served me all the way through. And I think that transparency will grow in terms of how organizations will look over their shoulder, see their peer network doing it, and feel comfortable and confident with it. I encourage it. I think we've got a lot of organizations trying to do too much too quickly as well. The wholesale transformation too quickly, collapsing under the ambition, the consumer's bewildered, not recognizing who this brand or organization is anymore. And I think we've got many examples that we can all pull out. And look, no one's admitting that this is not a difficult, challenging, pressurized environment. But as again, I pull you back to being consumers. They don't care. They don't need to know. They're not impacted by it. They just want what they want. And we've taught them this. We have given them the toolkit to be able to be ever demanding, ever asking, ever enabled. So that's how I think we have built this generation of consumers. So I think smarter is, in some cases, thinking a bit smaller. You know, the pain point in the content chain where you add the real value, asset tagging, versioning, personalization at scale, but then piloting it, measuring it, learning from it, and researching it. Sanity checking how this absolutely feels, rather than just looking at the data point, I think is the massive difference. I think we're comforted too much by our own internal noise. And sometimes it can feel that you go out into the big wide world with trepidation. And we know that it is about the question that we ask. But I do think consumers generally are whirling you on to get this right. They want the benefit of it too. I think it wouldn't be right for me if I didn't touch on ethics and inclusion when it comes to consumers. Absolutely. Some are fickle, some are frangible, some just don't really care. It doesn't even cross their mind. But for some, absolutely, it's essential. Representation, feeling listened to, feeling like human still counts. And this is why I think we see this pendulum swing from digital to analog so often. The rise we're seeing in that real human activity of everything from handwriting to baking to sewing to creating our own interiors again, all of this coming from that comforting, nurturing element that to be human still counts. So I think when it comes to ethics and inclusion, we can only, of course, expect the tech to be as good as it's trained and the data trained on. So if that data is biased, exclusionary, unrepresentative, too quick to market, the outputs are likely to carry some flaws. And I think that's why diverse data sets are critical. I think there are brilliant organizations building those guardrails, the standards, the oversight, the continuous testing to ensure fairness. I'm sure many of you have seen probably the Dove piece on the Dove Code playbook for inclusive AI. I don't ever give a case study or example in scenarios such as this because I think it's still play and learn for many of us. But I do watch that with interest to understand how it can still champion fairness and representation, see how that develops. If anything, innovation without ethics is really just a liability. When it comes to sustainability, you will probably be tuned into the fact this, again, is a really interesting area for media. And I do want, again, to remind you as consumers just how much information you take from those news bulletins, how much you actually listen to. There was something, again, on AI within medical today, which is an area I'm getting more involved with. And I could easily understand how that person moving through life, trying to get on with 3 things at once, would have taken quite a worrying soundbite for the interface of where their digital records sit and what the next stage of development is being suggested. So I think it's absolutely paramount that we use simplicity at its best when it comes to explanation, education, and helping our consumers understand whether we're part of the mix that's delivering it or all of the mix. I think it's not about efficiency for efficiency's sake. That's not the switch on for organizations. Consumers want to buy from brands that align with their personal values. Their personal values might just be like that hierarchy of needs, moving, shifting, ever evolving. But I think explaining how tech is friend, not foe in this environment is a really class example. So there's 3 key words for me, the words that shine on in every piece of focus group, actually going into consumers' homes, interviewing, working with them, living with them, watching them go through life and understanding their planning from, as I said, theme park planning to celebration of life planning. Transparency really connects. It really is the winner. It's my golden rule. So if consumers understand that something in your data, in your digital, isn't to their liking and they discover that by accident, they kind of gotcha moment, I think that's the relationship soured, potentially permanently. But I do think open, clarity, consistency is going to be our next chapter, a story of innovation with honesty combined. Of course, that means publishing your principles. It means being out there. And I understand exactly where that sits with your communications teams, with your legal teams and everything. But it's a safer bridge to cross now than in a couple of years' time. Of course, we can content at speed, which is fantastic. Of course, we can be automated in that, which brilliant. But speed without that strategy is just dangerous. And we heard earlier on in the panel from JD about that tone of voice piece. I think this is just, if I had one repeated experience of my last 2 years, this is it. Headlong into the content. Look at all the things this shiny, bright tool can do. Look at what we can achieve. Unwound, even speedier. You've got to get it right. You have to ensure this feels like us, this looks like us, this sounds like us, and this is what the consumers want from us. There's a brilliant yet simple phrase I think I hear myself saying daily at the moment. Just because you can doesn't always mean you should. And I think it's that earnest reminder that I'm working with organizations on all the more. It is wonderful to be amongst my brilliant tech collaborators in wondering what if and how it can, and let's shoot for the moon. But I want to be the reminder in the room that this is absolutely critical, and I am seeing it unwind good work, years of good work, in what feels to be seconds. So it's quality at scale. Please, quality at scale. The opportunity to use, to identify what resonates, and then that craftsmanship. Don't remove the craftsmanship. Help the crafters get to a higher level. Help them be used for the purpose they intended, what they trained for, what they came for. And I think that can be proven all the more with metrics that matter. Moving beyond the vanity metrics. This year, particularly at Cannes, it was talked to on the stages at Future Gazers, the conferences I run. Truly, are people really feeling that comfortable on it? I'm not certain. Some brands may be empowered to do so, but I truly think the minute we can move beyond that and get into the real stuff, it's going to help. It's about balance, of course. It's that trust, it's that engagement. Lifetime value is not over. Loyalty is not dead. It's evolved. It's moved. There's a new era of it. It looks very different, but I do think it's still there. And I think this new tech in an era, I'm guessing maybe in 2-3 years at max tops, we'll be talking about measurement in an entirely different way. And hallelujah to that. I think it's the opportunity, of course, to reimagine the supply chain itself completely. Again, I'm going to appeal here because I see it being delivered so very differently than it's talked to in the boardrooms, in the big glossy press releases. It is mapping the journey, truly understanding the full length and breadth of it, because again, the banana skins that leader was talking about, I'm experiencing it, I am walking those floors, I am visiting the sites, I am on your socials, and I am seeing them glaringly there and obvious. And as I say, no one gets up in the morning and thinks, I'm going to do a really crackingly bad job today, but it's happening all the more. You can't help but look at the impact of speed and cost efficiency and perhaps point the finger there. But I also think we have generational difference understandings. We all should be round and represented, the board tables, because our voice counts. I am absolutely pro all skill sets, all people, all time. Everyone's got value to add to me. 2 ears, 1 mouth, using that order. However, I think generationally, I do think we have different skills to lean into. And I can't help think, even in my organization, my younger colleagues have never been or experienced a world where sometimes the long game has impacted. And I think it's my responsibility to keep supporting and educating that can be just an exciting and winning formula. And if you've never learnt to play the long game, how do you even know how to do it? So I realize that my time is quickly disappearing. I hope it's been useful. I'm certainly trying to give you everything in a concentrated period at speed. I am on your side. I really want to help consumers in this next generation to feel supported and engaged with as organizations want and lean more into those direct relationships with the consumers. I wanted to kind of set some compass points that I work to that help, and I know that organizations and clients I work with have benefited from. I think it is about that tone setting, tone of voice, but also tone setting for the tech and the ethical AI. Investing in the training and culture. Like I said, sometimes the long game can be as winning a formula. How can you use it? Leading with those values. Show them what a good job looks like, leaders. Get out there. Talk to them. Show them what you expect. Show them where the joy is. Listen to all. But making sure we define success beyond that efficiency. So the top takeouts in terms of that beyond the buzzword AI, brilliant. We want to make it in the media a force for good. We need more education to do that. We need to go against some of the sound bites that perhaps talk too much of its detriment and explain the positive, how it's been around for so long, where you might see it and not even realize it exists. That's the job for people like me to do as an advocate. But I do think it is about the education they might find through your organization. It is an opportunity. It isn't magic. Orchestration is going to be integration. Customer trust is the bottom line. Authenticity, respect. That's what consumers are looking for. So when it comes to being memorable as a brand, it is about your uniqueness in brand voice. Just because we can doesn't mean we always should. Just because competitor X is doing it doesn't mean that's for us. So please, please, please get confident, build on that, drive on that. That's where consumers will love you. Make the experience consistent. Don't let yourself down with your banana skin on the shop floor when it all sort of fails through there. And exceed. Delight. Surprise and delight. Under-promise. Over-deliver, particularly as we head into peak. I do think we've been moved into the platinum era of retail. I'm excited about it. I keep getting asked to do documentaries and things. The end of the high street. It's not. It's just the very beginning of a very different shopping experience with a very different consumer. And I'm excited by it. I'm thrilled by it because it's going to mean more personalization. It isn't a one-size-fits-all. It's a one-size-fits-you. I hope this helps. I'm inspired by you all. I wish you the very best of luck. Thank you very much.